always hoped that someone would come and take me away from here.
Know your place and be satisfied with what you've got. I promise you. You'll be much happier.
If you want to get out of here, you're going to have to do it yourself. I guess wishing's no good either. Everything starts with a wish.
I suppose you think the prince is going to take one look at you and fall madly in love.
Impossible.
As I've said, spiritual awakenings are the journey of becoming your higher self, which means that you're going to be continuously integrating your shadow, aka healing wounds, and learning lessons in an effort to find and maintain the balance between your light and dark. Staying on brand with my own content, I've been accomplishing this through revisiting some of the movies of my childhood. So in today's video, I'm going to analyze Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. Growing up, Cinderella was one of my favorite Disney princesses and fairy tales. Firstly, because the glass slippers were just the bougiest things I'd ever seen or heard of. I mean, who was out here rocking glass heels? Nobody. But also because her story is a story I deeply resonated with. There was a desire to serendipitously meet a man who'd be so smitten with me, he'd whisk me away into a life of luxury, a direct result of my daddy issues that came from having a neglectful, non-provider father. But there was also the desire to escape from an environment that wasn't nurturing me and was in fact stifling me. Even though the Cinderella syndrome is problematic, and Chloe has a very good video talking about why, I will link it in a card in the upper right corner and down below. Watching all these renditions of Cinderella inspired my younger self to dream beyond my current circumstances, and that's an important lesson that all little girls and grown women need to keep in their hearts. Rodgers and Hammerstein's rendition of Cinderella is a necessary remake that illustrates the principle of femininity being its own reward, as well as the fact that being a pick-me never pays off. Femininity is a way of life. There is a guide we can all follow, but the overall presentation will be unique to every woman. The only way for women to develop our own brand of femininity is through having a healthy masculine and feminine role model in our life and energy within ourselves. The feminine energy is an integral part of being able to dream and imagine your ideal world, which is the keystone of manifesting. The second step is to take a literal step towards manifesting, which is the nature of masculinity. The visuals in this movie are also spectacular, particularly the casting choices. The movie's colorblind casting is not 100% colorblind, but for all the right reasons, making it one of the best examples of corrective promotion for Black women I've seen yet. Now, on to the movie.
If I've done my job right, there's no reason on earth that the prince shouldn't pick one of you for his bride.
I want a chance at him!
Take one of my daughters, Your Highness. I beg of you. Remember, girls, we hide our flaws
Until after the wedding.
But shouldn't a man love you for who you are in spite of everything?
How quaint.
In the introductory scene, there's an emphasis on shoes, with most of the shots making it a point to cut out the faces of the extras altogether and focus on the many steps each of them are taking. Obviously, there's a reference to the trademark of Cinderella, the glass slippers, but the close-ups of the shoes work to connote the importance of wearing shoes that fit, literally and as a metaphor in the sense of being true to yourself and finding your own lane. Our introduction to Cinderella's stepmother is a shot of her very ill-fitting shoes that inhibit her ability to walk gracefully, which emphasizes the facade she is putting on. Her and her daughters are perfect examples of the problem with pick-me's that weaponize femininity to soothe their own egos, versus being motivated by true women's empowerment and understanding themselves to be the prize. Their characters all focus on their outward appearance, using their garish and over-the-top dressings to overcompensate for their lackluster inner beauty, and because they subconsciously know that they are trying and failing to be something they are not. This is the core of why they are so awful to Cinderella. Despite her not having any of their fancy dresses, at her core, she is truly feminine, and this is part of why she is so attractive to the prince. Feminine women will always trigger pick-me's because feminine women represent everything they secretly want to be, but actively shun or poorly emulate. Mind you, I am saying this as a reformed pick-me. Rather than turning their sights to their own higher selves and being the best version of themselves, they spend their time trying to shackle her at their own lower level, which is exactly why they get left behind when she does eventually free herself by choosing to go where she is celebrated. One of the things I love about this version is the fact that the stepfamily isn't ugly, unlike the Walt Disney cartoon. Although I do understand their imaging in the cartoon version, it kind of implies that all pretty people equal good, all ugly people equal bad, a sentiment they did rectify with Cinderella too. But in this version with Brandy, the emphasis on their personalities perfectly illustrates the actual truth of life not being so black and white. The stepfamily's characterization demonstrates the all-important moral of femininity being a way of life, not simply a way of dressing. Cinderella is the only woman out of her family to understand and embody what it means to be the prize. The song her stepsisters sing while spying at the ball is an especially revealing look into their psyche and perfectly explains why they don't get a happy ending. The entire song, the sisters are lamenting over the fact that the prince chose Cinderella over themselves, and rather than them holding their L gracefully, they resent their sister over a grown man's actions. In the song, their focus is trying to downplay her beauty, i.e., her face is exquisite, I suppose, but no more exquisite than a rose's. Their pick-me egos on further display in the chorus, with them crying, "Why would he choose a girl that's so unusual? Why can't a guy for once prefer a usual girl like me?" The prince has made it very clear he is not interested and in fact prefers another woman to them, but rather than letting it be, they're trying to get into his head so they can figure out how to mold themselves to suit his vision. Never mind if the prince even cares for or about them, which he has made it very clear he does not. The trying on of the glass slipper is basically a visual metaphor that underscores their low self-esteem and embarrassing demeanor. They and all the other women know good and well they didn't leave behind the glass slipper, but because they view the prince as the prize, they compete with other women for his affections, willingly embarrassing themselves because of their denial. Cinderella gets a happy ending because, unlike her sisters and the rest of the women in the kingdom, she wasn't trying to impress the prince. That's why her goddess mother added on the midnight deadline, to make sure Cinderella actually enticed the prince to pursue her and didn't make herself too available. She wasn't thirsty for a man, sis low-key just wanted to get out of the house. There were apparently some critiques of taking a more feminist approach to her character when this movie first aired, and without watching the movie, I'd agree with them, especially with the titular character being an unambiguous black woman. However, after analyzing the film, I think this, quote, feminist tone is the most important piece of this remake because it better illustrates the feminine lesson of utilizing your own person to strategically place yourself in a position to win, as opposed to sitting on your ass and waiting for someone to come save you. There is nothing wrong with being a damsel. It does appeal to men's protective instincts, and black women especially can benefit from this type of characterization. But I feel it's much more beneficial and realistic to demonstrate that traditional femininity can and does involve some actual strategy and initiative. Being a feminine woman means being able to manifest, but it also means taking advantage of the opportunities you've manifested and asked for. This is the basic message of her song with her fairy goddess mother, illustrating that the difference between the true winners and losers in life is their mindset. It's all a matter of perspective. I remember reading a comment on a video that said, "What you're gonna do really doesn't matter." And to be honest, they're right. Her goddess mother even mentions this.
That's the problem with most people. They dream about what they want to do instead of really doing it.
Is this obstacle a dead end, a signal you need to backtrack and try another route, or is it a stop sign meant to incite inspection of your path before you proceed on your way? Very rarely do people ever immediately know their calling in life. Most of us end up discovering our soul mission after trial and error through life experience. That is, in my opinion, the entire point of us being here on Earth anyway. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Yes, Cinderella's story is obviously miraculous, but that's just meant as a hyperbole to illustrate the seemingly miraculous occurrences that happen when you finally believe in yourself and take initiative towards manifesting your dreams. Cinderella's goddess mother is a physical embodiment of the traits Cinderella needs to nurture to become her highest self. Peep the orange and gold coloring of her character and the chaotic swirls of her magic glitter. The orange and spirals symbolize her intuition, aka sacral chakra, aka her feminine energy, and the gold is referencing the sun, aka solar plexus chakra, aka her own confidence and will. Pay attention to their expressions when they sing the song Impossible. Many times, Cinderella looks scared or doubtful, while her goddess mother looks confident and excited, like the declaration of impossibility is a challenge to be overcome. It's also important to point out the difference between her feminine role model compared to her sisters. Her goddess mother spends her time building her confidence while providing assistance when necessary, while her stepsisters are never good enough for their stepmother.
Whatever you do, girls, you mustn't let the prince know how clever you are. Men can't stand to be around smart women. She's really much smarter than she looks.
I feel that the scene of them preparing for the ball perfectly shows where their mother went wrong with Cinderella's siblings compared to her. They are all people pleasers, the difference being her sisters are actresses, molding themselves into what they think is desirable to their audience, while Cinderella purposefully dims her light to prevent outshining others. Cinderella's stepmother sees her daughters as an extension of her, not in the positive sense of them being blossoms she needs to nurture, but in the narcissistic sense of them being supplies she can live vicariously through. She said so herself. She'd have married a prince already if given the same opportunities as her daughters. It's very telling to me that when she was trying to gain favor with the prince, she petitions his servant with pointing out, "Oh, these are my daughters," instead of coyly like, "My, those young women are something, aren't they?" Like she's making it a point to make her presence known so that on the off chance one of them is chosen, she will be able to take some credit for it. They wouldn't have been chosen because they're remarkable and special. It'd have been specifically because she raised them. Then we see how quickly she turns on them and makes herself their competition when given the opportunity. Her forcing her foot into the slipper is an allegory for her own artificial femininity. Her femininity, if you will. At first glance, she appears a feminine woman with her probably expensive and tailored dresses. However, with time, her mask eventually slips, revealing her true nature.
And it's cutting off my circulation! Get it off me! Off!
Her stepmother's musical monologue reveals why she is bitterly single and her daughters know nothing of feminine allure. Mind you, I don't think she's entirely wrong with her approach to marriage. I think more women should put an emphasis on being strategic versus idealistic when it comes to who you sign those papers with. But her song depicts society's wrongly binary thinking that says we women can either marry a man with money or a man we love, because the two are mutually exclusive. This is a common trope I've noticed in movies that depict struggle love, and it's not just in black movies. The female protagonist has her bummy boyfriend or broke love interest that she ends up choosing over the rich guy because we all know money is the root of all evil, right? It could be argued that Cinderella is herself unrealistically idealistic, but I think that her opinion on love is simply to juxtapose her own feminine graciousness with her stepfamily's lack thereof. If a man is going to marry a woman, keeping in mind that generally men are the ones who initiate marriage, then it only makes sense that a recipe for a successful one involves the man loving your true self, not an idealized mask. Her duet with Prince Christopher at the ball ponders this concept with posing the question of whether they love the other because they are worth loving, or if they've deified each other to the point of hypnosis. This song demonstrates a level of self-awareness of their own respective personalities and a subtle wisdom. Their journeys parallel each other in that they are each finding their voice and courage to live the lives they desire. The ball is an ethereal climax for these two young people who've been so unhappy with their circumstances, but with their partition at the clock bells, they are brought back to reality to answer the question of, are they a dream come true, or are they a dream that is allowing me to escape my current reality? I think the glass slipper remaining after the clock strike is a grounding token, meant to symbolize that their dreams have in fact come into manifestation. For Prince Christopher, it represents the prize he must now go forth and find, and for Cinderella, it is proof that she is the prize and of her own magic, therefore giving her the courage to leave her toxic environment. The attitude of the stepmother versus Cinderella draws a parallel to the hot girl hypergamy versus genuine femininity movement going on today. Many women today, scorned by dusty men, have taken it upon themselves to become cold-hearted succubuses who chase the bag at all costs. Character of the bag holder be damned. Now, listen, I firmly believe in hypergamy, and gold digger is not a slur in this camp. But if you approach relationships with the intention of finessing men, rather than with an understanding of the dance that is necessary for peace, then you're setting yourself up for failure. I would absolutely rather do my crying in a Porsche than a hoopty, but you know what I prefer even more? Not crying at all. Taking a page out of Chrissy's book, over here, high value is not synonymous with high quality. It's simply an indication of net worth. If we affirm our existence as proof that good women exist, then logically, it only makes sense that there are also good men out there. Remember, the law of attraction is real, and water always seeks its own level. Our inner morals matter just as much as our outer presentation. The initial meeting between Cinderella and the prince confirms this sentiment, and I think it is the memory of this meeting, among other things, that makes him so sure that she is the one. Their conversation reveals that her outer appearance isn't the sole factor in his attraction to her, and his reaction to her in all her glitz and glamour also affirms the visual nature of men. At the end of the day, her beauty is simply the cherry on top of the cake. It highlights her inner beauty, it doesn't replace it. In their initial interaction, it was her words that really captivated him.
I'm not sure I want to meet this stranger.
I doubt if he has any idea how a girl should be treated.
Like a princess, I suppose.
No, like a person with kindness and respect.
You're not like most girls, are you?
While I personally don't object to being pampered like a princess, I can understand the problematic nature of his sentiment. In the general sense, or at least to my knowledge, princesses are largely only pampered in the hopes of being pretty enough to be used as a pawn in a strategically powerful arranged marriage. So here, Cinderella is once again demonstrating a level of understanding of femininity that goes beyond the performative aspects. A woman should be provided for, not simply because of her title of woman, but because she is an individual that you genuinely care for. Cinderella's statement and their synchronous laments over their respective lives demonstrates a level of understanding and connection that the prince doesn't share with anyone else. Their relationship is technically shallow. Based off of what we've seen, they really don't know each other, but I think they are meant to illustrate the basic magnetism between a masculine man and a feminine woman that facilitates harmony. A high-quality masculine man is not looking for a trophy wife or a sex doll or a live-in maid. He is looking for a partner that will make his life better. Of course, men get a sense of satisfaction from building, but I feel that the motivations for that satisfaction comes from the instinct that tells them that demonstrating their ability to provide increases their chances of joining with an attractive mate.
You gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman. That's why you gotta make your own moves.
Men need us more than we need them because we are the inspiration that makes their hardworking lives worth living. Note the imagery of the spirals, not just in the wall decorations, but even in the dancing. Before Cinderella came, the guest movements were very robotic and strict, eventually becoming more impatient and chaotic as the prince goes through the unfeminine woman. With her arrival, the room goes from stiff to more dynamic with a natural organization, and everyone's movements literally moving in a spiral formation. This illustrates the power of femininity and the balance that is achieved when the masculine and feminine combine, further illustrating why the prince is so enamored with her. While every woman has feminine energy within her, not every woman has unlocked the doors to that feminine energy, and as a result, even less know how to utilize it to their benefit. Cinderella's feminine energy, specifically her imagination, was allowed to flourish as a coping mechanism for her hostile environment, but this outpour from her and the wounded feminines of her stepfamily, along with the lack of a healthy masculine energy, created an imbalance. Her abundance of feminine energy and lack of inner masculinity turned her into a doormat damsel. The energy within and around her was very stagnant, passive, introverted, and cold, causing her to seek solace by the fire, and the fire, being the element of the sun and solar plexus chakra, is again a reference to her yearning for masculinity. Remember, it was the loss of her father that kept her toiling under her stepfamily's wrath in the first place. The prince is the catalyst that enlightened her to the fact that there is better out there, thus giving her the courage to go where she is celebrated. The prince being the catalyst for her journey is an allegory for our own inner masculinity that gives us the confidence and willpower to move upward and onward. Her entire journey is a symbolic blueprint to becoming a successful hypergamous woman. She discovered how to channel her own femininity productively, meeting her goddess mother, and heeded the promptings of masculinity, having the courage to go to the ball and again to leave her stepmother's house, leading to her manifesting her own personal nirvana that allows her to rest comfortably in femininity. Taking the casting choices of this film into account, this story is also a bit of a prophecy, giving an accurate depiction to what will happen and does happen when unambiguous Black women treat themselves as the prize and divest. Divestment is ultimately about going where you're celebrated and putting yourself before every and anyone, breaking generational curses along the way. The goal is not solely about getting a non-Black or especially white man. Remember, men are not and will never be the prize, no matter their color or culture. But dating interracially is one ripple making up the growing wave that is Black women's empowerment. One of the biggest things holding Black women back is the fettered, one-sided loyalty they have to Black men. Black culture has wrongfully elevated Black men to being the prize, and as a result, they largely act any old way because, and this is just one reason of many, Black women have demonstrated for centuries that they largely aren't going anywhere. Not only is it not doing them any favors within the tribe, in the grand scheme of things, Black women being race loyal to the Black male collective has the effect of, number one, masculinizing Black women, since this loyalty involves taking up the masculine responsibility of attempting to protect Black men from white men, the most powerful man on the planet. Ergo, white men won't see Black women as women, they simply see them as challengers, aka men. And number two, it effectively tells the world that Black women and the least powerful men on the globe are one and the same, putting them in a box at the bottom of the social totem pole. The dominant society is always going to think of themselves first. However, being mixed and often being a token minority in their institutions, I've seen the hierarchy of the way minorities in general are treated, but I've also seen the way white people react when you defy the stereotypes. Skin color and phenotypes, of course, affect us, But a sharp mind, amiable personality, good heart, and of course, femininity are assets that you should keep in your arsenal, and this is the subliminal moral of this movie. The union between Cinderella and Prince Christopher, as well as the King and Queen, are important additions to this movie because both women portray feminine archetypes that defy stereotypes, all while having darker skin, Afrocentric features, and even black hairstyles. These visuals completely counteract the abusive narrative of Blackistan that says that black women are unfeminine, undesired, and unworthy of healthy love. Cinderella's entire storyline is a tale of divestment. She didn't have a masculine protector or a feminine role model, and as a result, she was raised to be a doormat, putting everyone before herself. However, once she takes a moment to step outside of her community in this case meaning her stepfamily, and realizes how she's been lied to and deprived, she finally finds the courage to put herself first and as a result is rewarded for it. Their unions also work to demonstrate that the key to men treating women with respect and seeing them as a prize is through having that example set for them by other men. It is not a coincidence that Prince Christopher's mother and love interest are both unambiguous black women. Peep this moment in his introductory scene where he gives another unambiguous black woman a flower. The final scene of the movie is especially important because it affirms Cinderella's image as a feminine woman, also displaying her feminine confidence, in addition to being a prophecy of what will happen when more women, but especially black women, embrace and nourish their femininity. One of the keys to elevating herself in the prince's eyes was the way she never gossiped or spoke ill of anyone, not even her awful family, which just goes to show what level she is on. Despite being beautiful, Minerva's character fits a few negative stereotypes associated with black women, so I feel her inclusion in the film is a warning to all the other black women who refuse to change their ways. Those ways being, number 1, being desperate for a man, and number 2, associating with and behaving like other toxic, wounded women. By the end of the movie, they of course come groveling because, despite their vitriol, they need her. But she doesn't even acknowledge them, simply lets the gates close behind her. Sometimes, the best clapback isn't a clapback, it's simply a cut off. I do think it is very interesting that there really weren't any black men featured in this supposedly colorblind movie, outside of voiceless extras in the background. Keeping with the spirituality theme of my channel and my own personality, I can't help but feel like this is a subtle foreshadowing of the erasure that is to come as more black women treat themselves as the prize and expand their options to find the best man for the job, thus indirectly forcing black men to compete with non-black men, provided of course that they are up for the challenge. And I'm definitely not saying black women should date out solely to spite black men or even to fix the black community, although that will be one of the side effects of more black women dating up and out. Ideally, anyway. I've noticed one of the most effective motivators for men is to remove their access to women. For example, are you still going to sleep with your man if he's misbehaving? No, because then he'd have no incentive to change. Why buy the cow when he gets the milk for free? However, I have to point out that it is still up to the man to choose if he will gravitate to his higher or lower self. We can only influence men's actions, not control them, and the first step in even having any influence is being the woman he chose. And it should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway. If you don't want a man, that is your right. You are feminine because you choose to be, regardless of your relationship status. Ultimately, Brandy and Whitney Houston's Cinderella reminds us that life is what we make it and what we want it to be. Never ask for permission, and especially not from people who've made it their mission to tear you down. Asking for permission gives away your own power and represses your own autonomy. Imagine if Cinderella had decided to be satisfied with dissatisfaction. There are any number of possibilities that can happen, but the timeline and end result you experience are 100% your choice. The only time it's too late to start living the life you want to live is when you're dead. Your ability to rebrand is one of your greatest assets. I'm not saying it's going to be a walk in the park, particularly not when you're first starting out, but it's important for you to know that it is possible. And now, here's an affirmation to help you keep the faith in yourself and stay connected with your guides. I am safe. I am secure. I am abundant in all. I love myself. Like with any prayer, say this on your bad days and your good days when you need to calm yourself or express your gratitude for any blessings. I am especially grateful for all of you being here and supporting my channel/journey. With all of my heart, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.